And thank you for reminding me to start that. So we missed your little preamble, but that's okay.
Let me do it again. No, no, go,
The
dude. I'm
word,
kidding.
the purpose of this book, David G. and David G. And we're picking up on page 145, bottom paragraph. Here we go. One instance comes to mind in which a malicious individual was always making friendly little jokes about an alcoholic's drinking exploits. In this way, he was slyly carrying tales. In another case, an alcoholic was sent to a hospital for treatment. Only a few knew of it at first, but within a short time, it was billboarded throughout the entire company. Naturally, this sort of thing decreased the man's chance of recovery. The employer can many times protect the victim from this kind of talk. The employer cannot play favorites, but he can always defend a man from needless provocation and unfair criticism.
Nothing, Emily.
Or June.
I have a few.
Oh,
Um,
June. I'm sorry.
that's okay. Malicious is mean, hurtful, vicious, or desiring to hurt others. Exploits, adventures, abuses, unethical uses. Carrying tales is gossiping. Billboarded means spread as if publicly advertised, or today's definition, gone viral, right? Provocation, a cause of anger or aggravation in another. Thanks.
Thanks, June.
Yeah, thank you, June. Yeah, so basically, that whole paragraph there is talking about how gossip is so dangerous. It is something that I need to avoid like the plague. It's none of my business spreading bad rumors about anyone else at all. And what can you one more time jump in again, June, with the definition of malicious, please?
All right. Malicious is mean, hurtful, vicious, desiring to hurt others.
Thank you, June. So finish that sentence. Once an instant comes in mind in which a malicious individual is always making friendly little jokes. Are you kidding me? They're not
Yeah.
friendly when I'm doing that. I'm being very mean. I'm being very hurtful, and I am intentionally doing these things. I need not to do that. I need to treat people like the child of God. So, the gossip that we're talking about here, it becomes a source of confusion. It just really does. It's something that I need to stay away from at all costs. And if you want to, you don't have to, but there's a direction in the big book in chapter how it works, and it's on page 61. It's in the first paragraph, and it's the last sentence. It says, is he not even in his best moments a producer of confusion rather than harmony? So is it my will or is it God's will? That is the question I need to be asking myself when I think it's a good idea to talk about someone, billboard someone, carry tales about someone. Very, very hurtful, could probably send someone back out again. My job in Alcoholics Anonymous is to make everyone feel welcome and make them feel safe.
Yeah, so we've been pointing out a lot, what's changed in the workplace between 1939 and 2025, and some things probably haven't changed that much at all. There's still gossip, right? Gossip ran wild in the workplace then, and it does now. The good news is that I think for the most part we can expect ownership and management to be a little bit more professional on the whole, but I guess that's not the case in every company. But there are a lot more sort of protections in place to, protect the employee. And we talked about the presence of things that have happened, employee assistance programs that are designed to, help employees. So, sort of the culture in the workplace has gotten, I would say, safer and more protective, which is I think we're all grateful for. But as David was talking about, he was sort of suggesting right there, and he was talking about before we got started tonight. We read the chapter to employers, the chapter to sponsors. Um, what about the damage that can be done inside the rooms of recovery? When it comes to gossip. I've been guilty of this for sure. It is something that I try to pride myself on not doing. I try to be an example, especially as I'm bringing new people along. But fallible human. I've had to make 10-step amends around when I've been talking smack. And sometimes when it was just on Bill Swan's nod, and I know his backstory, right? It was all about this, right? So sometimes not even the stuff I say, right? It's the fancied stuff, the conversations I have, inside my head, and I have to go tell on myself, right? Either my sponsor or to a running buddy like David, somebody that's got my trust and my spiritual consent, you know. We talk about opinions kill in the room to recovery, right? This thing, our solution in this book, in the big book, this is the recipe for survival at the least, but thriving at the greatest, right? Being a real agent of God. The things that we do outside of this book are what can damage, right? Those are the things that can kill. You know, my opinion, my best thinking. No, this is not Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, any 12-step fellowship that I may be a member of does not need David's original slant on anything, right? It just needs me to be a continued teacher, student, and practitioner of what was already figured out before me. Okay, moving on. Top of 146. As a class, alcoholics are energetic people. They work hard and they play hard. Your man should be on his mettle to make good. Being somewhat weakened and faced with physical and mental readjustment to a life which knows no alcohol, he may overdo. You may have to curb his desire to work 16 hours a day. You may need to encourage him to play once in a while. He may wish to do a lot for other alcoholics, and something of the sort may come up during business hours. A reasonable amount of latitude will be helpful. This work is necessary to maintain his sobriety.
Okay, I have mettle, which is prepared to accept a challenge and do one's best. Latitude, freedom of action or choice.
Thank you, Joan.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Dave.
so my experience is exactly this, and especially if I just keep it into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and the bunch of people that I've been blessed to be able to work with. Because again, I think sponsorship is one of the greatest gifts the sobriety's ever given me. To watch other people's life come together, have the relationship with a power greater than themselves, and then get free of the bondage of self. And that the promise is to have a spiritual experience, and that's exactly what happens when we work the steps honestly and thoroughly. So it says, as a class, alcoholics are energetic people. That I find that to be very true, especially after you're done with the DTs, right? After you get that job back, and you're grateful to have a job. You know, after you get out of prison, after you do the stent. I mean, I've had experiences with all shapes and forms of life. And then this says they work hard and they play hard, but I'm going to read just a little bit more, and then I'm going to talk about what is so important to me. Your man should be on his mettle to make good. Being somewhat weakened and faced in physical and mental readjustments to life, which knows no alcohol, he may overdo. Balance. Where's my balance? Where's my balance? And this is why I need a spiritual mentor. That's why I need to have a sponsor, someone that has some experience, armed with the facts about themselves, overdoing it, working too much, and then if you commit to me, then the bottom line is we get together once a week. We go through the work. And even after you've gone through the work, we still try to get together once a week and talk about what's going on. Commitment to that. You got to balance out life with family. You got to balance out life at work. You know, overdoing things too much. You know, and then where are you at spiritually? How are you staying spiritually fit? Where's your prayer? How much time do you spend with God in the morning? Are you rushing through your prayer? Did you pray today? You know, all those things are so vital that I have this kind of structure in my life. And I just got done sitting down with a person I've been sponsoring for quite a long time and have much more sobriety than me, but has never gone through the work until the last 10 years. And when I took them through the work, they had an experience where there wasn't any balance. And I said, page 84 in the 10th step. Where is God in all this? Like, that is here's the word I'm going to use, a vital spiritual discipline. Vital that I do this. This is not an option that I once in a while gravitate to the 10 step disciplines. No, this is something I must do all the time. Back to the paragraph, after the 16-hour day desire to work 16 hours a day. You may need to encourage him to play once in a while. He may wish to do a lot of other alcoholics, or something of some sort may come up during business hours. So, you know, for me, date night is important. I'm fortunate enough to have a wife for a very long time, and much longer than even my sobriety. And because I practice these principles in all my affairs, we have a great relationship today. Not her job to practice my principles and all my affairs. My job to do that. And because of that, we have date night, and I have relationship with all my kids. But here's the balance: God first, sobriety second, my wife third, my children fourth, and my job fifth. And when David and I go to treatment centers, I always share that with the people at treatment, and they go, "Oh, good." I said, "Dude, that is not for you to run home and tell your wife she is number 3 on that list. That is not what I'm saying to you right now. That is not the case. The thing is here is like, if God isn't first, I'm not staying sober. And if my sobriety isn't more important in any relationship, because all my relationships are based off of my sobriety, then I'm not going to have a relationship because I didn't know how to have one prior to anyway. So, and then the one last thing here is I should be always trying to stay spiritually fit enough so I can intensively work with other people. That'll pull me out of myself. That'll help me have more balance. That'll have me a better relationship with God. And then I'll know through experience of other people how to have balance in my life, how to have that repetition in my life. Like no matter what, I do not miss my prayers. I do not miss my meditation every single day. Inventory at night, and my prayers at night after that.
Mm. Yeah, I was thinking about a couple of things here in this paragraph. So David mentioned balance, moderation. The joke that I always make is, this is going to take me to the end of my days, and maybe by the time they're engraving me a headstone, it says David was a moderate man. He lived a balanced existence, right? That's what I would like to be remembered at by the time, I've died. And I was thinking about how much work it takes to continue to uh, unbecome the person that I was, and that I have to continue to grow in understanding and effectiveness, right? As we get out of steps, 10 and ultimately 11. And if you're thinking about the language around growing, right? In step 10, it says our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. Most things in our recovery path are not going to be an overnight matter, right? Why would I dive in as I'm starting to get healthy and work 16-hour days? Well, probably I'm trying to channel all of my energy that I used to spend drinking and drugging, right? Or I'm finding something else to obsess about because I haven't really developed a new relationship with God yet. Or maybe I'm working like a maniac because I'm under the ill-gotten idea that I need to figure my life out financially before spiritually, right? Whatever the motivation is to do a bunch of work like this, it's malintended, right? And so I think it is important that we encourage sponsees, right? And in this case, employees, to have some balance. So, then this line, he may wish to do a lot for other alcoholics, and something of the sort may come up during business hours. This takes me back to page 129. Bottom paragraph, this is in the family afterward. I bring this up all the time in meetings because there is no concept of this unless you are a big book thumper like I expect everybody in this meeting is, and this is how you sponsor. Nobody knows about this in the average meeting. What am I talking about? Bottom 129, it says, though the family does not fully agree with dad's spiritual activities, they should let him have his head. Even if he displays a certain amount of neglect and irresponsibility towards the family, it is well to let him go as far as he likes in helping other alcoholics. Here's the key phrase: during those first days of convalescence, this will do more to ensure his sobriety than anything else. I want to read that one more time. During these first days of convalescence, that means healing, getting better, this will do more to ensure his sobriety than anything else. Tell me, can anyone tell me how you reconcile that language with some of the things you've heard in meetings? Like I have to get through step number X before I can sponsor someone. Or I have to wait until my sponsor tells me I'm ready to get a sponsee of my own. Right? All these sort of nonsense slogans we hear. What it says here, the direction is help immediately, early in recovery, period. And what's the practical way this goes down? I've said this to hundreds of people over the years. If you're there for your second meeting and somebody walks in, it's their first meeting, you are the best person in the room to go up and say, Hey man, welcome. Yeah, I've only been here. This is my second time here. I know exactly how you feel. Come on in. Here's where the coffee is. You can sit next to me. That level of help to someone coming into their first meeting is immeasurable, right? So in these, David talks about this a lot. Really, the program of recovery, so the understanding of our problem of alcoholism and the program of recovery really is just the 8 pages of the doctor's opinion and then the first 103 pages, starting with page number 1. But then from page 104 through 164, it's really, we've got all this content about how we go out and live in step 12, right? And so that's a little bit of what's being talked about here, both on that paragraph 129 and here in 146. It's saying we're asking the people in our lives, in our orbit, to understand what we have to do and how we have to live. And we're sort of seeking their consent and support to let us go out and help alcoholics, sometimes at the expense of family time and sometimes at the expense of working time. Okay, 146, second paragraph. After your man has gone along without drinking for a few months, you may be able to make use of his services with other employees who are giving you the alcoholic runaround, provided, of course, they're willing to have a third party in the picture. An alcoholic who has recovered, past tense, but holds a relatively unimportant job, can talk to a man with a better position. Being on a radically different basis of life, he will never take advantage of the situation. June has nothing.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to speak about this as though this is about sponsors, how I can do. So it talks about if a man has gone a long way without drinking for a few months. So this is one of my sponsors. He's gone a few months without drinking, and for me, if it's a few months, he's worked all 12 steps. You may be able to make use of his services with other employees who are giving you the alcoholic runaround. David and I have taken our sponsees to treatment centers with us. They haven't always participated in the talk that we do because they're interested in how we do the talk. So we're instructing them how to break down the first step. When David and I do a treatment center, we are talking about the first step, because if you don't understand the first step, there's really no reason to go any farther. If you don't understand the nature of the body, the mind, and the spirit, why would you try to even go any farther with them? So we don't do a drunkalog. We don't even bring up, except for the fact we introduce ourselves as alcoholics and drug addicts, recovered ones too, by the way. And David emphasized strongly who has recovered in past tense. And it even talks about that right on the title page that we're recovered. So let's not have a disagreement about that. There's no need to. And then as I read further in that paragraph, an alcoholic who has recovered but holds a relatively unimportant job can talk to a man with a better position. This is shoulder to shoulder. It doesn't matter if I am a garbage man, which is nothing wrong with that because you make darn good living, by the way, or if you're a politician or whatever your career is, or if you're retired, for Christ's sake. That is anything that I have, or any of my beliefs that I have, or any of my liberties that I have outside of the rooms do not come inside the room. So I just leave them out of there. So there's nothing to do with it. I can carry this message to an alcoholic or an addict, someone with a couple months of sobriety, as David just read on bottom page 129. Early convalescence. Yes, that is the perfect person that new person will be able to relate to. But the last sentence on that page, in that paragraph, says being on a radically different basis of life. A recovered alcoholic. That's what that means. A recovered alcoholic of mind, body, and spirit. We straighten out spiritually, then we straighten out mentally and physically. He will never take advantage of the situation. When I'm armed with the facts about myself, I don't have to know that. I don't have to memorize this book. I just have some basic knowledge of this book, be a page ahead of that guy, and I can take them through the work. And then they can be recovered too. Isn't that the goal? The goal is to get them to a power greater than themselves so they don't have to suffer from the illness that they suffer from, threefolded, by the way. And I don't suffer from it, and neither shall you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's being talked about in this paragraph is it's sort of introducing this concept of a little bit of classism or elitism. So in the workplace, talking about someone who holds a relatively unimportant job can talk to a man with a better position. So maybe it's a guy in the warehouse who does a pick, pack, and ship position versus the executive vice president of sales and marketing, something like that. And what's being suggested here is that In sickness, let's remember we're all equal, right? God looks at us all the same. Guess what? So does cancer. Cancer don't care if you got $2 in your pocket or 2 million bucks. If it's got your number, it's got your number, right? And this concept was introduced way back on page 17, right? It's good to re-emphasize this. Let's just hop back there. Let's bounce to page 17 for a second. In second paragraph, and I know you guys all know this well, but it's worth just reading again. Where average Americans, all sections of this country and many of its occupations are represented. Talking about the membership of AA, right? And it's not just Americans. In 1939, it was. Now we got some of our brothers and sisters here from the UK and Thailand and Vietnam, as we do every week, right? So we're people who normally would not mix, but there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. We're like the passengers of a great liner the moment the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage down in the bowels of the boat next to the boiler to the captain's table, which again, back in the day on ships like the Titanic and the Queen Mary and all that, that only the elite of the elite. I love Joe and Charlie do a nice job of talking about this. If you had old money, you're going to get the invitation to sit at the captain's table, right? And so, but this is really important. Let's just, this is an important callback here. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy and escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. The feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element, right? One element in the powerful cement which binds us. But that in itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. What are they saying there, guys? And I know we studied this a million moons ago. This is saying alcoholism, addiction, just like cancer and other chronic illnesses, is the great equalizer. It just don't care how young, how old, how rich, how poor, how black, how white, how gay, how straight, or whatever, right? Any of the ways in which we are all different and unique, alcoholism and addiction don't care. But here's the beauty of it. Recovery don't care either. Just doesn't care. We have a system that works for everybody, provided we do the work thoroughly and honestly. Right? That's the thing. And we were talking before the meeting. I sent David a podcast of Billy N, who was dropping knowledge about Tradition One, Concept One. I'm sure some of you guys have listened to Billy talk about stuff too. And I love when he talks about the third tradition. You know, he talks about it with respect to Alcoholics Anonymous. That's his fellowship. And he says, third tradition is a qualification tradition and nothing else matters.
Mm.
Not, am I an alcoholic and I'm gay? No, it's not, I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict. No, it's not, am I an alcoholic and I'm black? No, it's, I'm an alcoholic. That's it. And I want to do something about it. Nothing else matters. So we put everything aside. And when the executive vice president of sales and marketing is a desperate, dying, real alcoholic, then the guy from the warehouse comes and guess what? They're on equal grounds because they both have the same illness. And that executive VP guy, he better want to buy what that warehouse worker is selling, because what he's selling is the path to freedom. 146, bottom paragraph. Your man may be trusted. Whew. Long experience with alcoholic excuses naturally arouses suspicion. When his wife next calls saying he is sick, you might jump to the conclusion he's drunk. If he is and is still trying to recover, he will tell you about it, even if it means the loss of his job. For he knows he must be honest if he would live at all. He will appreciate knowing you are not bothering your head about him, that you are not suspicious, nor are you trying to run his life, so he will be shielded from temptation to drink. If he is conscientiously following the program of recovery, he can go anywhere your business may call him.
I have bothering your head, which is to worry or be concerned about something. Conscientiously is carefully, thoroughly, or painstakingly.
Mm.
Thank you, June. Yeah, so in that paragraph, your man may be trusted. Period. because the fact is he's on the road to recovery probably. So even with the sponsee, I can trust my sponsee because number one, we commit to a certain time and a date to get together and do the step work. And then it says, but there's been long experiences because I sat down, had a long talk with him, and I know his background. And the employer also knows his experience with the employee because he knows he calls off a lot. That long experience with alcoholic excuses naturally arouses suspicion. I think that's just natural. But it says when a wife next calls saying he is sick, you might jump to the conclusion with the drunk. That kind of raises a red flag for me a little bit. Why is the wife calling him in sick? Why can't he call himself in sick? I mean, does he got laryngitis? I mean, or is he maybe really, really sick and he's really in the hospital? So I'm not making light of that. But I don't think that's what they're necessarily referring to. I think the responsibility for me is to call in myself sick. And then I don't have to put on that fakey cough and I'm really sick. I can't come in today. That kind of abuse that I had in the past. Then it says if he is and he still is trying to recover, he will tell you about it. I'm sorry, I skipped a sentence that's vital here. When his wife next calls saying he's sick, you might jump to the conclusion he's drunk. If he is, and he's still trying to recover, he will tell you about it, even if it means lost a job. I've had that experience many times with guys who've relapsed, and they will come to me and tell me that they drank again. And I don't judge that. You know why? Because I understand the first step. That's why I understand the first step that they have no power, no choice, no control. But the thing is, the next sentence: for if he knows, he must be honest if he were to live it all. To live it all is a reference to not just drinking. It's not about just putting the plug in the jug. It's getting free of the bondage of self. And Bill points it out. And if you want to go there, go there. It's on page 62 of the book because if you've studied up to that point in the book, page 8 pages in the doctor's opinion, and all the way to page 62, we finally find out. Bill finally tells us that our real problem is not alcohol. Our real problem is that we're selfish and self-centered. That is our real problem. It's the root to all our troubles. We find that out. That's finally when Bill tells us the truth about ourselves. But we needed to have all that preparation to find out the nature of the threefold illness. We needed to know that. So for me to live means freedom from the bondage of self. And I can't free myself from the bondage of self because I don't have the power to do that. And then it says, you appreciate knowing you're not bothering your head about him. So that I think that's what it is, trying to allow my conscience to be my guide. Being honest for the first time in my life, understanding the nature of this illness. You didn't mean to pick up, but did you choose to pick up? You didn't choose to pick up. You had no choice. I need to stress that with people. They didn't have a choice because there is no choice. The only choice is that I work these steps. I understand the nature of this illness. I work these steps diligently and honestly through the process so I can get free and then have a relationship of power. Then it says, nor are you trying to run his life so he would be shielded from temptation to drink. That always fails. Always fails. Shielding him from that drink. It's like, put that guy in some part of the world. Yeah, Greenland, where an Eskimo might show up with a bottle of vodka or whatever the heck they use in the book. That doesn't work. If I want to drink, I will find a drink, no matter what. And if I got to walk barefoot in the snow, I'll do that too. Then it says that if he is conscientiously following the program of recovery, the 12 steps, he can go anywhere our business may call him to go. But I think it's on page 102. I didn't really make my note, but 102, I believe, says, let me see, be sure. Oh yeah, page 102. I am right for a change. Top of the page, it says, if you answer these questions satisfactorily, you need to have no apprehension. Go or stay away. So they're talking about freedom there. I can either go to a meeting at a bar or a restaurant that are serving liquor. I can go or stay. I can be free either way. And it says whichever seems best. But here's the thing. But be sure you are on solid spiritual ground before you start, and that your motive in going is thoroughly good. Do not think of what you will get out of the occasion. Think about what you can bring to it. But if you're shaky, you had better. That is a must. That is a warning to work with another alcoholic instead. That's all I got there.
Yes. So yeah, I guess I would say a little bit of this is what we've brought up a bunch. This is the big ask of the employer. Just sort of making the statement, your man to be trusted. Really, that is saying trust your alcoholic employee. And there's some other big asks in this thing too, is saying if he calls and tells the truth that he got drunk again, let it go. Like if you really feel he's being earnest and you really feel he's conscientiously doing this and he's just having a couple of trip ups, then the idea here is not to discharge the alcoholic, but keep him on the payroll and let him keep going and sort of hoping that he gets straightened out. It's a lot to ask the employer, I just want to say. But I love this. For he knows he must be honest if he would live at all. We talk about this a lot in the fourth step when there's the little chart, with the 3 columns that are, and that's what, page 64 or something like that. Is that right, David? 60.
Mhm.
Yeah, 64.
So,
Yep. So right under the chart, 65, sorry. Right
Yeah,
under the chart, we went back to our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. So that's the qualification for how you know if you did the columns correctly, that you were thorough and honest. But as I've said a million times, really, that's a microcosm for how I approach the entire program recovery. I got to be thorough and I got to be honest, right? So he knows he must be honest if he would live at all. And I'd add to that, he's got to do all the work. And he's got to keep doing all the work. And then towards the end here, if he is conscientiously following the program of recovery, he can go anywhere your business may call him. And you did not take us to 26, right, David?
No, I do not.
Okay, so let's just look at 26 real quick. But this is in the midst of one of my favorite stories. Those of you guys who've been studying this a long time know how much I love the story Roland has with Dr. Jung, and I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'm just going to point out the bottom of 26, what the good news is about Roland's story, right? Once it gets beyond what's related on these pages, it says, but this man still lives and is a free man. He does not need a bodyguard, nor is he confined. He can go anywhere on this earth where other free men may go without disaster, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. That's the promise of recovery, guys, that I can live like a quote unquote normal person, because the stuff in my head, my heart, and my gut gets cast out and replaced with new, healthier ones when I do all the work thoroughly and honestly and conscientiously. Such a great word. It's so many syllables and it sounds like a fancy word, but that's what this is all about. And so here's the other thing, just to relate a few more pages from 27, this certain simple attitude. And again, we can't prove this is what Bill was talking about, but if you go to page 55, right? And you go to the 1, 2, 3rd, 4th paragraph. It says, we can only clear the ground a bit if our testimony helps sweep away prejudice, enables you to think honestly, encourage you to search diligently within yourself. Then if you wish, you can join us on the broad highway with this attitude. All right. You cannot fail. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. So that's 55. That attitude's a callback to the attitude on 26. And really, it's a link to what's being described in 147. A conscientious following of the program has to do with my attitude and then my actions, right? And here's the other thing. What does it mean to have to be conscientiously following the program? I was struck by this idea the other day. Again, it's plaguing recovery. I'm going to start asking rhetorically, because I already know the answer in some meetings when I'm doing my shares. What would your program of recovery look like if you removed going to meetings from it? Right? If you stopped going to meetings, what would you be doing in your program recovery? Right? Now, I know lots of people here would say, well, I got a sponsor I meet with, I got sponsees, I have a service commitment, I go to treatment centers, I got da-da-da-da-da, right? All those things. But sadly, a bunch of our peers in meetings would look at me like I had a third eye, because that's all they got is going to meetings. That is not conscientiously following the program recovery. And all I'm going to say is I'm going to take it from Herb K. I'm not judging. I'm just observing, which is really a lie. I'm judging, right? So I'll pray about that. Top of 147. In case he does stumble even once, you'll have to decide whether to let him go. if you are sure he doesn't, or excuse me, if you are, oh boy, hold on. Let me get my glasses, guys. Should have been wearing these the whole time. Yeah, much better. Jeez, night and day. If you're sure he doesn't mean business, there's no doubt you should discharge him. If, on the contrary, you are sure he is doing his utmost, you may wish to give him another chance. But you should feel under no obligation to keep him on, for your obligation has been well discharged already. June, yeah, what do you got?
I have contrary, which is conflicting, opposite, completely different. Obligation, which is duty, liability, or debt.
Let me hop in here real quick, David, because this is what I was just
Mhm.
talking about. So this second paragraph is, just a direct follow-up to the idea that was introduced the paragraph before. When his wife next calls saying he's sick, you might jump to the conclusion he's drunk. If he is and is still trying to recover, he'll tell you, even if it means he'll lose a job, right? He's got to be honest, he's going to live, and he appreciate you not worrying about him, not being suspicious, And then it says here, if he does, so we're saying if that now happens, practically, and he tells you he did drink, then, as I was suggesting, Bill's saying, I think Bill wants the employer to keep him on, but he's just saying, like, I recognize there's a couple alternatives here. So you got to make the decision. If he drinks, you're going to let him go. If you're sure he doesn't mean business, so he's just taking advantage of the employer, stringing along, trying to earn more money to keep drinking, there's no doubt you should discharge him, right? So Bill's saying, if this guy is not serious, fire him, right? Because maybe that's the bottom the alcoholic needs to finally get well. But he's saying, if you actually think he really is doing his best, and I hate this word, he slipped. I was going to say he resumed drinking. I hate slip. It's such a passive work. Like, I didn't do it. I slipped. It happened to me. No. If he resumed drinking, right, you might want to give him another chance, right? If you really feel he's trying this and he's just having a little trouble at the beginning, but there's no obligation to keep him on, for your obligation has been well discharged already. That means at this point, when you let him keep the job and you supported him and, maybe helped him, got him into detox, rehab, whatever it was, you've done enough. So at some point, enough's enough.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to that, David. Good job. And it talks about, if I'm a sponsor, if I'm reading it this way, and my sponsee stumbles, that's the wording that Bill's using here. And David's right, it's resume. Even once. So even once, I'm not letting him go. But here's the caveat. You will have to decide whether to let him go. If you're sure he doesn't mean business, I need to find out if he means business. Don't waste my time. And if you're not done, go finish the job. And I hope you come back. I hope that you can make it back, because people do die. I do not give them that challenge of go have 2 drinks a day at the same time a day for 30 days. I don't like that necessarily. It is in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's not a challenge that I'm going to give them, the allergy test. But the thing is, I got to reemphasize to them, when you took that drink, did you have any power or control or manage the amount that you could take? And when you stop, why did you pick up? Because you have no power, no choice, no control. So are you good? And are you done good and for all? Are you ready to really do this work? Ready to be accountable to prayer? Ready to be accountable to a certain set of meetings that are literature based? Are you ready to sit down with me on a weekly basis and talk to me on a regular basis about what's going on in your life today? I mean, those are the things that my requirements, because it's the way I was sponsored. And then it says, there's no doubt you should discharge him. So, I mean, there's times that if he's not serious, I'm just going to tell him either go finish the job, or I'm going to say maybe you should strongly suggest to him he should work with someone else. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, again, I don't believe in firing anybody. I think that's egotistical. But again, if you're not serious, then don't waste my time or yours. You're really wasting your time. There's another job to be done. Because what I'm trying to do with my guys, I got a guy who just came back after a 20-year hiatus from working with me. He had 5 years of sobriety, went back out, disappeared for 20 years, showed back up in my life again. I am preparing him for sponsorship right now at 3 weeks sober. He is on his 5th step, and I am preparing him to carry this message, because that's the directions in the book. In early convalescence, we've got to have intensive work with other alcoholics on page 89. Gives us the direction to do that. And then it says in the book, it says, but you utmost you may wish to give him another chance, but you should feel under no obligation to keep him on, for your obligation has been well discharged already. So again, I'm emphasizing and then re-emphasizing him. Are you serious about this or you're not? Because if you're not serious about this, then dude, there's nothing I can do to help you. We're not in the result business, but we are in the carrying the message business. So you said you wanted what I have, then you have to do what I did. And we in this group here do a lot. I do a lot. I worked all day today. I went to a sponsee's house right after this, came right here on this meeting, and I do that practically almost all the time. Do I have a lot of balance though? I absolutely do. I don't get any sleep, but I got a lot of balance, so it doesn't, I'll sleep when I'm dead. How's that? That's the trade-off I'm gonna give. But it's all good. My daughter just off the charts here. My daughter bought me a ring that monitors my sleeping patterns. It was a horrible read for me. I wore it for a week. I'm like, I already know this.
Yeah.
I know I sleep for 4 hours a night, and I come home and take a half-hour nap every day. That's just how I operate, and I love the way I live my life today. So, the ring's going back. That's all.
Yeah, just want to reemphasize, 'cause David just brought it up again, that line on 129. If you don't remember anything else tonight, or you don't highlight anything else, highlight this. During those first days of convalescence, this will do more to ensure his sobriety than anything else. Not his first weeks, not his first months, not his first years, those first days of convalescence. This will do more to ensure his sobriety than anything else. Man. Okay, but back on 147, second paragraph. There is another thing you might wish to do. If your organization is a large one, your junior executives might be provided with this book. You might let them know you have no quarrel with the alcoholics of your organization. These juniors are often in a difficult position. Men under them are frequently their friends. So, for one reason or another, they cover these men, hoping matters will take a turn for the better. They often jeopardize their own positions by trying to help serious drinkers who should have been fired long ago or else given an opportunity to get well.
I have jeopardize, which is threaten, risk, invite injury to, or loss of.
Thank you, June. Yeah, so I just want to go back to when we started this chapter and remind the group and remind myself also that, Hank Parkhurst wrote this chapter, but his writing is a little bit choppy. So Bill rewrote it in his words, rewrote it, this chapter, so that there's a certain writing style in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you follow anything to do with writing literature, is just to make it easier for the reader. And that was Bill's intention, because again, Hank's wording was a little bit choppy. So this is Hank talking. Bill took this definitely off of his writing, because he's talking about a huge organization. Because Hank Parkhurst was a big executive for Standard Oil or whatever it was. I can't remember now, but he worked for a huge corporation, and he was over a large group of men. So he had that experience. But okay, if I'm reading this chapter here to one thing I'm going to say about this. There's another thing you might wish to do. If your organization is a large one, your junior section might be provided with this book. So if you're one of my sponsees, please don't show up at a meeting without your big book. Please don't show up at my house without your big book. Please don't show up at a meeting without your big book, period, the end. Why? Because that is where the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is. That's why. Dude, how are you going to carry this message if you don't have the book to go reference something to? It's so important that I have the big book. I'm not coming across with an arrogant way. It's just I don't go anywhere without my book. And I actually keep an extra one or so in my truck, so that if a new guy shows up, he ain't leaving without a big book too. And I am strong on that. Like, if one of my guys shows up, it may be the first thing I see. I'm like, where's your book, bro? It's like, dude, as soon as you pause, I'm like, go out to your car and get it. Because how do you know when God's going to put somebody in your life? I got to be armed with the facts about myself. I got to be armed with the literature in Alcoholics Anonymous. And this, again, is Alcoholics Anonymous. So I have to have this.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a ton to add in this one. Again, this is just sort of characterizing what it might look like in the business. Um, the only thing that I really have highlighted here is just this ending part. They often jeopardize their own positions by trying to help serious drinkers who should have been fired long ago or else given an opportunity to get well. So what Bill's really, Hank and Bill are really suggesting here is, okay, so we're, many pages into this book and what we're on 120, 147. We started this on 136, so we're 11 pages in this chapter. And what Bill's really saying is, okay, Mr. Employer, Mr. Business Owner, Mr. CEO, you have studied this book, and now you've studied and understood this chapter. You've considered, the sort of practical application of these things with your employees. You may want to take it another level and get the rest of your management team in a position to help here, right? So it's a little bit more of sort of recruiting people to carry the message, right, in the workplace so that we can help more alcoholics, right? And again, this was a time where when this book was written, there weren't that many people, right? There was fewer than 100. And so those members of AA were thinking about all the ways in which they could cooperate with the professional community and all of these communities to be able to carry the message, get educated about the message, and then carry it to people who needed to hear it, right? And this is just a recap again. So they're saying, yeah, some of these junior execs, they're good guys and they're protecting their friends, but maybe they should have had the opportunity to get better presented to them or just fired them so they reached the bottom instead of just shielding them and hiding, you know?
And let me say one more thing about that, because David gave a hypothetical before about talking about what if you just didn't go to meetings anymore, but the people in this group here, we go to meetings because we have sponsees, we have service commitment, we have a home group, we have all these things that are important to us and are vital for my recovery. So that's why I have a big book. I want my guys to have a big book because they need to be, because the problem in Alcoholics Anonymous, in my experience, a lot of times is piss poor sponsorship. People that are not armed with the facts about themselves. But also the thing is like they're so unarmed with the facts about themselves that they tell these lies. Just don't drink, go to meetings. Don't drink between meetings. Don't drink no matter what. Like, oh my God, if I could pull any of those things off, why would I need to be in Alcoholics Anonymous? So to have a big book underneath my arm to go to a meeting, it's leading by demonstration. And then when I point out to them that the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is the big book, and it's not the fellowship, the fellowship derives from it. And yes, we meet, and that's where we find each other, and that's where we carry this message at, and that's where I get to have a sponsee and carry the message so that they can carry the message, because they're gonna need to do that. And the last thing I'll say about that is there's many times I've worked with people who had a bunch of 24 hours, drank again, came back. And when they came back, I said, hey, how many? I said, what happened? And they usually say they stopped going to meetings. And that's really the last thing they did. They stopped praying. They stopped working the steps. But I asked them, I said, how many sponsees do you have? Do you need help with those guys? And they're like, well, I never really got into sponsorship. Might be a problem. Might be a huge problem.
All right, continuing on 147. After reading this book, a junior executive can go to such a man and say approximately this: look here, Ed, do you want to stop drinking or not? You put me on the spot every time you get drunk. It isn't fair to me or the firm. I have been learning something about alcoholism. If you're an alcoholic, you are a mighty sick man. You act like one. The firm wants to help you get over it. And if you are interested, there is a way out. If you take it, your past will be forgotten, and the fact that you went away for treatment will not be mentioned. But if you cannot or will not stop drinking, I think you ought to resign.
Nothing. Okay. So not a lot here for me on this thing, other than the fact is the boss is making it personal, Ed. You know why? Because he's armed with the facts. He knows about the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So he gets to make it personal. The guy did his homework. He's studying the thing. He says, look here, Ed. Do you want to stop drinking or not? Ed, answer the question, please. And it says, you put me on the spot every time you get drunk. Boom, right between the eyes, right, Ed? Isn't it fair to, it's not fair to me or the firm, right between the eyes again. And I've been learning something about alcoholism. He's learning something about alcoholism, what I need to do. I need to know about this. If you're an alcoholic, you're a mighty sick man, Ed. He is actually making this very personal. And it's something that I need to do. I need to make this personal. This is a life-saving business. This is not about patting someone on the, hey, when you get time, honey, we'll work these steps at your pace. No, that's not the case. Not for me, anyways. Like you're a desperate alcoholic who can't stop drinking no matter how much on your own power. Then let's get busy and do this work. And then it says, you act like one. The firm wants to help you get over it. We as sponsors, we as groups want to help you get over it. If you're interested, there's a way out. That's a promise. That is a promise in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you take it, your past will be forgotten. That is really the case. When I was driving a semi, when I got sober, they had, because I started showing up to work all the time, they had forgotten my past and they forgave me for it. And I went to work and I was a really, really good employee when I was there. And the fact that it went on for treatment will not be mentioned. But if you cannot or will not stop drinking, I think you ought to resign. So if he's still using, and don't use the thing that doesn't mean don't drink and go to meetings, like I pointed out before. Like these are things that they talk about it on page 58 too, about the can-nots and the will-nots. I mean, what is he? Is he a can-not or is he in a will-not? I need to find that out too. So that's all I got there.
And I was doing my best not to go into 1930s movie guy voice. I started off that way, right? Look here, Ed. Right? I can hear that from like one of those old high-speed black and white movies. So it's, and Dave, I think as we've been going through this chapter, I've been sort of presenting most of this content again in the way it's written to employers, and David's been doing a nice job of the sort of dual approach of the two sponsors. But I'm just going to steal a little from David's side of the street here. This is an approach that I take with guys that are new, and and some people don't like it. They think they advocate love and coddling. I'm a little bit more of the tough love variety, because as we say a lot, and we said a few times tonight, this is life or death, right? I can't produce the results, but I can kind of work my tail off to help somebody get to God. And our buddy Howard just joined us. You guys, those of you who know him, he loves talking about that window of opportunity. And sometimes we just do not have the time to coddle and wait for someone to be ready. We just have got to get them going. And oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, perfect. Window of opportunity, baby. And sometimes people just need a kick in the ass. And that's a little bit of what's being talked about in this paragraph right now. So do you want to stop drinking or not? I mean, that's what I ask people. Are you done? And if someone's hemming and hawing, I'm like, all right, well, I don't think I have any way in which I can help you, because if your goal is not to get better, if you didn't show up here to Alcoholics Anonymous to stop drinking, I'm not sure what you're doing here. If you came here to learn how to moderate, this isn't the right. First of all, I'm going to let them know that I'm not going to help them not drink. I'm going to help them get to God. But if you are looking for a moderation program, those things exist. I don't know. I mean, I've heard of them. I don't know what they are, but you're not going to find that in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? So you want to stop drinking or not? Now, from the employer's point of view, you put me on the spot every time you get drunk. It isn't fair to me or the firm. I don't know many alcoholics that would care about those kinds of statements, because I'm too self-absorbed to worry about how I'm hurting you or the business. And then, I've been learning something about alcoholism that may turn somebody off. That's okay too. All right. But if you are an alcoholic, you're a mighty sick man. You act like one. These are some truths to tell, right? The firm wants to help you get over it. And if you're interested, there's a way out. What's the way out? Right here. And I believe, at least according to Joe and Charlie, that was one of the names for the big book that they had considered, a way out. If you take it, your past will be forgotten. David talked a little about that. And the fact that you went away for treatment will not be mentioned. But if you cannot or will not stop drinking, I think you ought to resign. Where have we heard cannot or will not? Let's bounce one more time before we wrap up here. Let's bounce all the way back to page 58, 59. All right, 58, top paragraph. Rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually, men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. And it's been a while, but I know we had a bunch of sessions, David, where we talked about the cannots versus the will not. All right. This is the same question that's being asked by the employer or the junior executive. He's saying, are you a cannot or are you a will not? Because if you're not either of those, that you means you can and you will. And fantastic, because I've got a solution for you right here. And who are the cannots and who are the will nots? I'm trying to remember how we broke this down before, David, right? The cannots and the will nots. And I think in my 20 plus years, I've met a lot of will nots. A lot of will nots. Sure how many cannots I've met. I've met a few. And who are they? The people who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. And I sponsored some people like this for some long periods of time. Some people I really cared about. And they did a lot of work and they did a lot of service work and they did a lot of carrying the message. And then what I really discovered about them was for all of their knowledge and all of their work, they were still holding on to some old ideas that they weren't powerless. Those were the cannots, right? But the thing is, cannots can become will nots, right? And then maybe they become willing, right? That's the dream. That's the hope.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Yep. And I just want to preview too that we're going to Hank's writing, but Bill's rewriting is going to point out in the next couple paragraphs some more cannots. So just come on back next week so we can read about that.